Welcome, everyone. It's great to see everyone here this evening for our Preparing for Pregnancy webinar. We have a team of wellness coaches that will be with us tonight, and we'll be speaking to you and sharing a lot of great information about how to prepare for pregnancy for both the guys and the gals. So we have some healthy tidbits for you that we'll be talking about in a little bit. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We are recording, so this will be made available to folks later on so that you can review this at a later point. And feel free to keep your cameras on if you would like, or you can go incognito on us if you'd like to do that as well. And a reminder to our speakers that we did hit the mute button, so when it's your turn, be sure to turn that back on again. So with no further ado, in recognizing the importance of everybody's time here, I want to get started by introducing our first speaker of the evening. And her name is Lee Austin. She is a registered nurse. And Lee has a strong nursing background with over 3 decades of employment as a registered nurse in a variety of areas, including medical, dialysis, obstetrics, gynecology, and has been a classroom educator. She was involved with a clinic, I believe, that dealt with fertility issues and has a great background in that, as well as neonatal care. About 15 years ago, she became keenly interested in an emerging approach to medicine, looking at the root cause of disease and the impact that lifestyle has on our health. During those years, she has acquired a master's degree in human nutrition and functional medicine, and completed numerous programs and certifications in this area of expertise. In 2021, she received her board certification as a health and wellness coach from NBHWC, and now she practices as a private health coach to individuals through her business, True Health Matters. Lee enjoys cooking, reading, and spending time with her husband, her 4 daughters, and their families, which includes 4 perfect grandchildren. And I've seen some of the grandchildren, and they are perfect. They're gorgeous. So Lee, why don't you take it away and talk to us a little bit about how we can plan for pregnancy.
Okay, well, thank you, Karen, very much. Hi, everybody. I'm gonna share my screen if I can remember all the. And let's see. Here. Okay, I've got a few little slides to show you. Okay, so I wanted to minimize this so I don't see myself and get in the way of my own slides. So I wanted to start our discussion tonight. I'm going to talk about nutrition. I wanted to address some of the newest findings that we have really, or that I could find about gut health during pregnancy. That's kind of a newer topic. And then a little bit, kind of want to finish off my part with talking a little bit about hydration. So I'd like for you to sort of try to sit back and sort of embrace the mindset that compares the mother's body to a farmer's field. So if you think about it, all right, in order for a farmer to get the healthiest and the best yield from their crop, they're going to focus on providing everything in the soil that the plant needs to grow, right? So the soil that the plant grows provides the nutrients that the plant needs. And how well that plant's essential needs are met are going to, in the soil, are going to determine the health of the plant. So, the mother's body is sort of like that plant or that soil. And we find that the baby is a very effective, acts like an effective kind of parasite. And it's going to take what it needs from the mother. So if the level of those nutrients are not present, then it can ultimately compromise the mother's health or lead to defects in the baby's health and their development, okay? So let's get started. I always forget I have to get down here to do that. All right, so if you think about it, like that soil that has to be prepared before the seeds put down, pregnancy really, preparation happens before pregnancy happens, okay? And so you need to focus on attempting to make healthier lifestyle choices and healthier eating. And the recommendations are, if you're going to do that, you should do it probably at least 6 months before you begin to try to conceive, to get your best, effects there, ultimately in changing some of the function of your body. So a mother's eating and lifestyle habits has been found, can actually profoundly change not only the immediate health of the baby when it's born, but also the lifelong effect of the person as they become an adult, and even diseases that they can develop as they get older. So there's a lot more information that what happens in the uterus is very has a big effect on somebody's lifelong health. So I want to go and move sort of onto a topic of medications and fertility. You might be asking, what do medications have to do with fertility? And we know that fertility is affected by medications, whether they're prescription medications and even some over the counter. It can affect ovulation. Obviously, birth control pills do that very effectively usually. But it can also, we found that they can interfere with the uterine lining, the integrity, that endometrial lining, the ability for the pregnancy to start, the egg to actually implant. Some medications have been shown to affect that. And on the male side, we know that certain medications, it's becoming more clear which ones and how they are doing this, but we think that there's a possibility that it can affect sperm production, it can affect sperm quality, motility. So those are all things to consider. And so it's a good idea anytime that you have medications or you're on medications, that you talk to your physician and let them know, make sure that your obstetrician knows what medications you take and have taken and take on a regular basis. So one of the ones that I wanted to mention here, one of the most common ones that you see, I think women taking sometimes are, oral contraceptives or birth control pills. And many people aren't aware of it, but they can actually start to deplete your body of a lot of nutrients. These are the main ones listed. A lot of the B vitamins, folate or folic acid is one of the big ones that I want to talk about. Vitamin C, magnesium, zinc are some others. And the length of time that you've been on the birth control pills can have an effect on how great an insufficiency you might have in some of these nutrients that it's kind of robbing your body of. Now, it's recommended that you stop birth control pills anywhere from 1 to 3 months before you try to get pregnant, before you try to conceive, and that gives your body an opportunity to recover, to replenish those nutrients and to get it back into an optimal state for conception. All right, so now I wanted to talk about some of the nutrients, especially some of those nutrients I just mentioned, in fact, but in general, we know that the body requires extra nutrients during pregnancy than it normally would, all right? And so one of them that's really important is folic acid or folate, all right? The difference between folate and folic acid is simply, folate is what you get from food. And folic acid is when you get the folate, your body has to change it basically or convert it into a more active form, which is folic acid. You'll find that in most of your supplements, they give you folic acid because it's more bioavailable. You get a better effect from it in that formulation. So that's what you're going to find. But the reason why this particular nutrient is so important, and we really need adequate levels of it when you're pregnant, is it helps to avoid birth defects, and especially birth defects of the brain and the spinal column. They call them neural tube defects. You may have heard of them. There's spina bifida is one, anencephalic is another one. And they're pretty serious birth defects. One of the big things too is these birth defects occur in children when those neural tube is actually closing, and that's around the 3rd to 4th week of birth, of life for the child, which when you think about it, that's before most women have missed their first period and may even know they're pregnant. So it's so important to already have this folic acid on board before you ever get pregnant, ideally. And it's so important that the government actually stepped in about maybe a decade or a little longer ago and added folic acid to as a requirement to products that are manufactured with what they call enriched grains. So like enriched, like breads and pastas and things like that that use enriched white or wheat flour or a certain grain like that. And we have seen some decrease since then, but it is important to think about that should be on board. This supplementation early on is important, but actually throughout the pregnancy, because it's shown that later in the pregnancy, it helps decrease premature births and actually a low birth weight in babies, which you're going to see if you have premature births anyway. So that's probably part of that. And the recommended amount is going to be 400 micrograms a day. That's before conception. Okay. Once you've conceived, you're pregnant, they recommend that you take 600 to 1,000 micrograms every day throughout your pregnancy. And any multivitamin, most multivitamins will have certainly the 400, I won't say most, any quality nutrient or multivitamin would probably have that 400 in there, but prenatals will have a higher dose, usually closer to the 6 to 1,000 micrograms. Now, I wanted to talk about food sources of folate, and mostly because supplements are really good for covering all the gaps, and I strongly recommend them. But your best sources of any nutrient is really from your food. So you want to eat in a healthy way and get as much folate as you can from your food. So here are some pictures of common or good sources of folate. The red lentil pasta is one of my favorite because it has lots of other, I think, positive benefits. But all of the things that are in these pictures would be a good source. The FDA puts out a chart, you can find it on their website, that lists a lot of these different products and how much folate they have in them. But if you look down here at the bottom, it has this enriched, under spaghetti, white flour, and bread. I personally don't recommend that people I work with take a lot of the enriched flour type of products, just because they're so broken down and almost pre-digested in the sense that they're going to tend to make your blood sugar rise, and you're getting very little nutrients that your cells can actually absorb from that particular type of product. All right, the next nutrient I kind of wanted to look at was omega-3 fats, and these are called essential fats. And that's because we can't make them. So they're essential because we have to consume them in our diet. And the big two of the big really important features or parts of these omega-3s is something called DHA and EPA. And this part of the omega fats are important to the development of the nervous system, especially the brain and the baby, especially the DHA. And we also see that it's important with the development of the vision or the visual development of the baby early on. DHA is important enough that I find it interesting that the formula companies picked up on this research, and it's been a little while back though, but they started adding it and kind of, making a lot of hoopla about the fact that they were adding DHA to their formulas because it was associated with an improvement of cognitive development in babies. So it's a good thing to, it's a good thing in general to have. DHA and EPA are also important as anti-inflammatories in general. So they're nice to have those good omega-3s on board. It was interesting when you go back to the male part of fertility again, in studies where they had infertile men and they added these omega-3 supplements or supplementation through supplements, not necessarily through food, but they found that these infertile men resulted in a significant improvement in sperm motility. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that, it's not a bad idea for, the father of the baby to be, eating well and taking, probably a good antioxidant as well as some omega-3 fats. Again, just to give you some ideas of good food sources, it's mostly going to be in fatty fish, or one of the best sources, not mostly, but in fatty fish. I like the small fish, the sardines, the, anchovies. Those are good sources. You can also use salmon. Salmon is an excellent source. The big thing about salmon is I would use wild caught versus farm raised, because the farm raised tends to have more persistent pollutants in it and heavy metals, and you don't really want to be consuming those yourself, but certainly not when you're pregnant. If you don't eat fish, or fish is not part of your diet, then you can always use, plant-based things like avocados and pumpkin seeds, nuts. Flax seeds are really great, chia seeds, and the oil from flaxseed is really good. So you can get it from other sources too. It's just you're going to get much higher levels in the fish, but you can always supplement. That's a good way to add it to. All right. The last nutrient I wanted to talk about was iron. And I think iron is pretty important because you probably have heard that anemia is one of the more common side effects, or one of the more common complications, so to speak, of pregnancy. And that's partly because during pregnancy, we need more iron. And part of the reason why we need more iron is because we need, those moms need to make more blood, because the nutrients and especially the oxygen is carried on the blood to the baby. So when you think about it, in the uterus, the baby's lungs are full of fluids. So they are not breathing air or oxygen in and out of their lungs like we are. So the only way that they can get oxygen to their tissues is for it to be carried on the blood cells and then, directed to the baby through the umbilical cord. So because of that, the mom needs to have lots of blood, and she needs to be able to have lots of iron to help carry that oxygen on those blood cells too. Now, deficiency of iron during pregnancy is also associated with a couple of things. One, low birth weight in the baby, and then postpartum depression in the mother after delivery. And you've probably heard of iron poor blood. Well, one of the things that will happen if mom is really anemic, then she may get really fatigued and have, even more fatigue and tiredness than she might experience in pregnancy anyway. So some good sources of iron in your food are, you're going to find the highest levels of iron in your food in your meats, especially your red meats, but in meat general, your meat proteins. But if you're not a meat eater, or it's not in your diet, you can still get iron through plant-based products. You can get it in, my favorite would be dark chocolate. You can eat but so much of it, or you shouldn't. But things like spinach, if you ever watched Popeye or you ever heard of Popeye, he ate a lot of spinach to make him strong. But also, some of the things like some nuts, lentils are a good source for iron. You just have to be aware that if you are not eating meat, then you have to be very intentional about making sure you're getting other sources of iron in your diet, and you may very well end up supplementing with iron. So many women, I'd say the majority of women that are pregnant, will need a little bit of extra iron supplement anyway, which is the reason why so many prenatal supplements have iron in them. Too much iron is not good, but a little bit of iron is really not a bad idea there. Now, there are risk factors that you can have in place that would increase the risk of you becoming anemic while you were pregnant. And those are going to include, things like if you have your pregnancies, or if you're having a pregnancy that's closely spaced together, like less than a year apart, or you're having multiple gestation, you're having twins or triplets or more. If you are, like I said, you're not consuming those iron-rich foods. If you have a history of anemia, before you ever got pregnant, that's going to kind of set you up to be at a higher risk for having it while you're pregnant. Or if you had a pregnancy that you had, a prior pregnancy that you were anemic, that would make you at a higher risk factor too. But certainly if you're somebody that that you have very heavy menstrual periods, or frequent menstrual periods, maybe more frequent than the 28 days, where you're losing more blood, then that's a reason for you to be a potential risk factor for losing more iron in that blood. So those are things just to be aware of. The things I want to talk about now, like to eat or not to eat, if you're already pregnant, your doctors may have gone over with you some of this, certainly the not to eat list that I'm going to show you. But what to eat, you want to eat a well-balanced diet. You want to eat, lean meats, or lean proteins if you're eating meat. You want to eat, a variety of fruits and vegetables. And I like to have people eat organic as much as possible. Now, I know your budget may not allow you to do that all the time. And you could go to, there's something put out called the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. You can just Google it, or we can always send that out to you. That's a list they put out every year of the level of pesticides the highest level versus the lowest level. And the one at the top of the Dirty Dozen, those are the ones that I would definitely say buy organic. And if you can, buy your meats and your dairy products organic, because they're going to have a lot of potential to give you more toxins. But as far as what not to eat, raw or uncooked meats, foods that are like, and especially things that have raw eggs in them, or poorly cooked, not very well cooked eggs. Sushi is a good example. Your meats, I like my meat on the very pinker side, but when you're pregnant, I couldn't eat it that way. I needed to eat my meat fully cooked. And anything that's raw, like cookie dough or cake batter, can have, unpasteurized egg in it, which any kind of regular egg is not in a shell. It's not going to be pasteurized. So if you're making raw cookie dough for yourself, and then you definitely don't want to eat that, because there's a potential for bacteria there that can make you sick. It can make the baby sick, and it can actually cause some birth defects. So that's why they're concerned about all that, the idea of raw and uncooked, because cooking kills that bacteria. Deli meats and even unpasteurized dairy products, there's a big concern over something called Listeria contamination, which is another bacteria there that can cause real potential birth defects. And some women can get Listeria and not have any symptoms from it, but the baby would still get it. So it's important that you just try to avoid these things while you're pregnant, like hot dogs and luncheon meat. And when you're talking about dairy, things like soft serve ice cream that comes from the machines that, offer it at the different, fast food places, or Dairy Queen or something like that, because they can develop in those machines, and those machines, even though they're cleaned regularly, they may not be cleaned as well as they need to be, and they can still have Listeria contamination there. And women that are pregnant are 10 times greater, have a greater chance of coming down with Listeria than healthy adults of the same age. Okay, so there's a greater, you're more susceptible to it. So you just avoid the things that can cause it, and you should be fine. Some of the softer cheeses that we don't think about, like feta and brie and blue cheese and Gonzala, those are cheeses that you probably want to stay away from. I was reading some research just the other day and looking at, and it was talking about Latina women, and that they have a higher level of Listeria occurrence. And they think it might be because many of the cheeses they use in their, that they eat and in their cooking or preparations, are softer cheeses. And one of the ones they actually mentioned was queso. And that's the first time I had seen queso mentioned. So I kind of wondered if I wouldn't be a little hesitant now to not eat, queso when I was pregnant, or if I was pregnant. Caffeine, excessive caffeine. I am definitely a coffee lover. So I'm very sensitive to people that enjoy their cup of coffee, but it is recommended that you limit the coffee, or you limit your caffeine to 150 milligrams a day. And that's usually going to work out to about 12 ounces of brewed coffee. It varies from the bean and the way it's brewed. And that's why if you go to someplace like a Starbucks or that type of coffee place, they typically use beans that are a higher level of caffeine. And so you would probably need to back that off to like an 8 ounce or a tall versus another size if you're getting it there. Remember that black tea and even green tea and sodas and energy drinks, they all contain caffeine too. So if the container doesn't, or the package doesn't tell you how much caffeine, you can always call. There's usually always some sort of a customer service number on there, and you probably should call that, find out. They should be able to tell you how much caffeine is in it, and then you can, determine based on 150 milligrams what your serving should be. There are certain seafoods that you want to stay away from. The fish that we've listed here, or that I listed here, the main reason is because they tend to hold on to or have higher levels of heavy metals, especially mercury. And tuna is one that you don't really want to eat probably when you're pregnant, because most of the time, in order for tuna to taste the way people like it, it has to be cooked. It can't be cooked a lot, and it needs to be cooked more to be considered safe anyway. So, and it also can have higher levels of mercury. So just stay away from these fish. It's only 9 months that you're pregnant, so you can do without a lot of these things. I know it's not always easy, but it's well worth it. It's again here raw, the vegetable sprouts, and they're talking about things like alfalfa sprouts, and even radishes are considered a sprout. Bean sprouts, all of these are you really shouldn't consume them like in your salads and things like that. You really even shouldn't consume them being steamed. You want them, if you're going to consume them, you need to have them cooked completely, like in a casserole where they've been in, a higher heat for an extended period of time. All right, I wanted to talk a little bit, very briefly, because I know I'm spending a lot of time here, but on pregnancy and gut health. And there's, this is a new science almost, and even gut health is a relatively new science. But certainly pregnancy and how gut health and how your pregnancy, the bacteria that are there, has really not been studied more than probably a couple of decades, if that much. And so the information is starting to sort of filter down. And what they're discovering is that especially processed foods, but also high sugar and high fat foods have been shown to suppress the good bacteria. We call good bacteria or friendly bacteria. Sometimes people call it the probiotics. They tend to be suppressed, and then the bad bacteria tends to be increased in the gut. So you want to stay away from these foods. It's also been shown that during the late phase, which would be like your last trimester of pregnancy, there's this, it's just an amazing thing that happens. It's actually a change that occurs in that flora, in the composition, and all those gut bacteria that live there. But the biggest change that they see is especially in this one particular type of bacteria that's in the gut, which is a good bacteria called Bifidobacterium. And this particular bacteria, we know, helps to break down the healthy sugars that are in the breast milk for the baby. And this actually helps them to absorb it and digest it easily and grow. And so what we know is if the mother has a high number of this particular bacteria in the gut, that's going to benefit their newborn babies. And what's interesting is that this is also the predominant bacteria that we see in newborns' guts. And we know this bacteria is also important for immunity support in the newborn, and probably partly because, their immune systems don't mature until they're a little older, till they're like 2. And so they're just starting to understand more and more how this impacts the immune system of the baby too. So I thought that was really interesting. So stay away from these foods and keep these levels of bacterium, of Bifidobacterium up in your gut. Now, just in general, eating a variety of fruits and vegetables, especially when you have more fiber in your diet, which that's going to do, will help to feed this healthy bacteria that's in your gut. We call them prebiotics, and they actually help to, fertilize and support those good bacteria that are in your gut. All right. Briefly, some people often want to know about weight gain during pregnancy. If you break it down into calories, if you look at the last trimester, that's when you really need to be consuming a lot of extra calories, or the most extra calories every day. And that's probably because the baby grows the most, especially the last 4 weeks of pregnancy. That baby is going to grow probably a pound a week. So it needs those extra calories to be able to put the weight on. And then as far as the weight gain of the mother during pregnancy, these are the recommendations. But, if you are already pregnant, or when you go to see your doctor, they give you different recommendations, then you want to really adhere to those, because your physician, they know your health condition, your health history. And so they're going to be the best one to make those recommendations for you. All right, last thing, hydration. And I like to mention this because really our water needs are important when we're pregnant. And if you think about why, it has to do with some things that we need the water to do for us. And one is we need that extra water or extra fluids to make the amniotic fluid to produce it for the baby. This is what surrounds the baby in the placenta, and it cushions it, it supports it, and it's an ongoing process. It's not like your body just makes amniotic fluid one time and that's it, and the baby just sits in it. It's constantly, being recycled or being, replaced. So it's an ongoing process. And then we talked about several times that the mother has to, have increased blood volume, increased blood cells, and that water needs to support that. We know that water helps with constipation, which is, again, one of the very common complaints that women will have in pregnancy. It just prevents dehydration. And then it can help It can help prevent preterm labor, especially when you're talking about preterm contractions that can start, especially later on in pregnancy. The recommended amount for hydration is 3 liters per day during pregnancy. That seems like a lot, but that also includes the fluids that you're going to be getting from the food you eat. All right. So if you take all that food part away, which would be from, like fruits and vegetables mostly, it boils down to you probably should be best to consume about 10 cups, 10 8-ounce cups a day from water and other beverages. So that gives you sort of a guideline there. So I know that was a lot, and I apologize if I talk too fast, but if you have questions or, you want this sent to you so you can hear it again, then we'll be able to do that at the end of the webinar. So now I'm going to turn it over to Judy. And Judy has a very full history. Her experience is amazing. She has a full history of aquatic experience. It started with swimming. She was a competitive swimmer, very competitive swimmer in college. And she has a long list of, credentials and certifications in all sorts of types of aerobics and fitness. And she has several decades of being a swim coach, a very loved swim coach, I might add, from the people that I've ever met that she coached. She presently does aquatic fitness, and I think she loves that. I think that's become a real passion for her, knowing her personally. But she's also a great health coach, and she's been doing that for about 15 years and, helping people determine what kind of changes they need to make in their lifestyle and their diet to get the best out of their health. So I'll turn it over to you, Judy.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate that. Thank you for all that information on the importance of what to eat and how to fuel your body with good nutrients and good macronutrients, which are the foods, and then the micronutrients, which are the minerals and other little things that actually go into help growing a healthy baby. But what I have the privilege of sharing tonight is the exercise piece of pregnancy. So during pregnancy, exercise can actually help you stay in shape, and it can prepare you for that labor and delivery that you will have in 9 months. I want to talk about exercise from the point of getting started or staying motivated, because as you develop, as your baby develops and as your girth gets bigger, your body changes shapes. And it can be very difficult getting around and staying active and trying to stay motivated to actually exercise. So pregnancy is actually the perfect time not to sit back and relax, because you're more tired, of course, but it's really a good time to stay active, because your body gets achy. Things are going to start shifting, and things are going to change in the way, your center of where your center of body movement is going to change. As your belly gets a little bigger, you're going to tend to want to lean forward. It can cause issues for your back. And this is where exercise comes into shape and where you really want to stay focused on it. Exercise will also help you to feel a lot better, and in the long run will be beneficial for your delivery. So I want to talk about a few things, why you should exercise during pregnancy. And the main reasons are that it prevents backaches. It can prevent constipation, like Lee was just talking about, or bloating and swelling. It can boost your mood, and it can actually increase some energy levels, especially if you don't feel real good in the beginning. It can help you sleep better. That's something that we need a lot of, especially when we are trying to develop or grow a baby in the first 3 months. It seems like we sleep a whole lot more. It can prevent that excess weight gain that Lee was talking about. You definitely need to gain a certain amount of weight, but you don't want to overgain. And then it also helps to promote toned muscles, gives you strength, and it actually gives you endurance, which are all things that are going to be important, especially when you go to deliver this baby. Other benefits would be it helps to prevent gestational diabetes. It can have an effect on the how long your labor is, and it also can reduce you having a C-section. So these are all really important factors that exercise can promote for your pregnancy. So getting the okay from your doctor is a really important factor. You, if you have been somebody that has been a constant exerciser, even up to the point where you got pregnant, most likely your doctor is going to say, yeah, go ahead and continue to do it. He may tell you to slow down, or he may tell you to slow down or to cut back on your regimen of what you are doing. And if you have any kind of problems, such as a heart or lung issues, high blood pressure, you develop maybe during the pregnancy, sometimes people will develop high blood pressure. You might develop cervical problems or persistent vaginal bleeding. And especially in the second trimester, you want to be concerned about that. Or if you have placenta problems, those are all going to be issues where your doctor is going to say, I don't think I want you exercising. So you want to make sure that you tell them when you go in for your appointments what you're doing to keep your body active, and how you're feeling. So what is a safe pace for pregnancy? Like I said earlier, if you've been exercising, your doctor may allow you to continue at the pace at which you are exercising, or they may encourage you to slow down a little bit, especially as you get further along in your pregnancy. Intense exercise, though, increases oxygen and blood flow to the muscles, and it takes it away from the uterus. So they're not going to want you to be, blowing your brains out in a high-powered exercise program during your pregnancy. In general, you're going to want to be able to carry on a conversation while you're exercising. So if you can't speak or talk normally while you are working out, you're probably pushing yourself too hard and you need to slow down. Remember to always warm up. That's a really important factor. You want to stretch during your exercise, and then you want to end with a cool down of some sort. And you want to drink plenty of fluids, like Lee was talking about. Staying hydrated is really important. And hydration will actually help to prevent you from overheating. When you get pregnant, a lot of women will raise their body temperature 1 degree. And 1 degree in exercise then also raises it. So if you're hydrating yourself, that's going to keep your body temperature down at a better rate, so that you won't overdo it and exert or overheat yourself. So depending on your fitness level, you'll want to consider these guidelines. If you haven't exercised in a while, you want to begin as little as 10 minutes a day. You don't want to start out really in a high gung-ho activity level, but increase it 15 to 20 and then maybe up to 30 minutes a day. If you've exercised before your pregnancy and you are continuing to do it, like I said earlier, your doctor's probably going to allow you to continue at that level, only come back on the pace of it. They may tell you to slow down a little bit, make sure you can talk, that kind of thing. Walking is an excellent exercise for beginners, and it provides moderate aerobic conditioning and minimal stress to your joints. So it's going to be a good option for you. Other good choices would be in swimming, water fitness, low impact aerobics, cycling on a stationary bike, or if you're early in pregnancy, you could probably get away on a regular bike. Strength training is okay as long as you stick to relatively low weights, or you could use like a stretch band to work those joints and tone your muscles. The safest exercises for pregnancy, like I said earlier, are going to be walking first, and that's actually the most popular exercise during pregnancy. And it's an excellent way to provide some key health benefits. Swimming and water fitness would be the second thing I would encourage you to do. I highly recommend this. I did water exercise for all 4 of my pregnancies. In fact, I taught it for all 4 of my pregnancies. It's a non-load bearing activity, but you feel amazing in the water because the water comes around you, surrounds you, and as you've got that natural resistance going on and that pressure, you just feel really, really good in the pool. And it's really good too because it's going to cushion your joints. So if you're having joint pain during your pregnancy or low back pain, it can have that tendency to release all of that. Some other options would be yoga, Pilates, and like I said earlier, weight training or resistance training with bands. The best exercises for pregnancy would be that swimming and water aerobics. Yoga is popular. That's a popular exercise with a lot of people. And I would encourage you to do it maybe before at the beginning stages and after pregnancy. During pregnancy, it might be a little bit difficult because sometimes those poses are hard to hold when you have a bigger belly out in front. But you can work at your own pace. And most instructors will provide lots of options for you to help relax your body during that time and get you to the range of motion that is beneficial for delivery even. So like I said, water aerobics would be my first choice and was my first choice. So, you know, they're, like I said earlier, their benefits are amazing, especially for the way you feel in the water and the joint issue. So those would be my the top 2: walking, water exercise, and then possibly a yoga type class if that is something you would enjoy. So how to stay motivated? You want to stick to some kind of exercise plan. Pick something, do it 3 to 4 times a week for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes a day. And find something that fits into your schedule that's relaxing for you. Because if it's not relaxing, you're not going to do it. Start small. You don't need to go to a gym. You know, you can go outside and walk. You can be out in the environment. Fresh air is always real good too. Find a partner. Partners are really fun to have because then you can have a conversation and you can talk and you can enjoy working out together. Or you can try a class, and there's lots of class options for you to try around the city. Lots of fitness centers offer things, and even some hospitals offer classes for pregnancy. So one of the last things I want to share with you is the importance of listening to your body. As important as it is to exercise, it's also important to watch the signs that could cause problems. So if you have something like vaginal bleeding, dizziness, headaches, shortness of breath before you start exercising, chest pain of any kind, uterine contractions, you feel that gush like coming out from your vagina, which could necessarily be your water breaking, that's a sign that you need to pay attention. Your calf swelling or muscle weakness, those would all be signs that you need to call your doctor. One tip I want to give you as before I finish, and that is if you are somebody that is going to want to participate in a water fitness program, Lee shared with us the importance of probiotics and probiotic foods. One of the things that is important to know is that chlorine in the water actually kills off good bacteria in your gut. And so if it is something that you do on a regular basis, you would want to be thinking possibly about taking a probiotic, at least on the days that you are water exercising. It is a very important thing to keep all the nutrients and all of your enzymes and all of the good gut bacteria up at optimal levels for you and your baby. So that's all I have to say for fitness. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn. Carolyn is a mother of 4. She has 4 grown children, and she has a keen interest in health and has been very involved with the health industry for the last 20 years. She saw what a difference that it made for her body during pregnancy as she chose to eat very healthy on some cases, and was involved with some unexpected things that I'll let her tell you about during other pregnancies, which also affected her babies and her health. So Carolyn is going to share with us about mindset and the importance of knowing how to deal with stress during pregnancy.
Thank you, Judy. So as she said, I'm going to just share a couple of stories about my pregnancies. So as she was saying, several months before I got pregnant with one of my pregnancies, I started eating only healthy foods. I ate mountains of vegetables and lean meats. And what happened in that pregnancy is it was such a breeze. I was so surprised. And that child was the healthiest of all my children. And then I had another pregnancy where I had a lot of stress. So when I was 3 months along, my husband's mother unexpectedly passed away. And obviously I was in shock, and I was thinking I was so calm, but in reality, I wasn't. And I started throwing up through the rest of that pregnancy. And then at 8 months pregnant with that child, my husband's father was killed in a car accident. And I went into labor right after the funeral. So, and that child caught every single illness that came along for the first 5 years of his life. Now he's healthy now, but I wish I had known then what I know now. And that's why I'm so excited that we're doing this webinar to help make your pregnancies so much healthier. So Lee and Judy have both spoken about things that are in your control. However, stress, like in my case, frequently is caused by events outside of your control. And stress can mean things like mental or emotional stress, like it was in my case, or it can be chemical stress caused by things such as illness, injury, or even digestive issues can cause stress. And when you're stressed, your body goes into a fight or flight mode, sending out a burst of cortisol and other hormones. And these are the same hormones that surge when you're in danger. So stress can actually cause infertility issues. And sometimes just being able to relax allows a couple to get pregnant. I've heard of several stories of couples who it was only after they stopped trying to get pregnant and they adopted a child that they finally actually became pregnant. So de-stressing is obviously really important, and you want to distress before attempting to even get pregnant. And I'll give you some ideas in just a moment. But of course, once you become pregnant, then there's a whole new set of stress that you've got to manage. And so you have that outside stress of life events that are happening to you, and then that inside stress of things you're concerned about. And it's easy to worry about so many things. You know, are you doing all the right things during pregnancy? What are you going to do once the baby is born? How are you going to handle that? You know, there's just so many things that is possible to worry about. But the good thing to know is that stress during pregnancy is normal, and it's the same as the rest of your life. You know, you have some stress. And in some cases, stress may even be good for people because it can actually push them to take action. For instance, like you might changing your eating habits or start to exercise. So when you actually deal with stress, when you have it, then your body goes back to normal. And that's obviously what you want. But the issue comes when the stress becomes constant. And that's when it could cause long-term effects for you or your baby. So chronic or ongoing stress can affect your own health or well-being and can include symptoms like experiencing headaches, problems sleeping, fast breathing, and a racing pulse. For me, it was that constant nausea, even after the first trimester. And then, of course, I went into labor early. So chronic stress could also cause problems for your baby. So these can include effects on your unborn baby's growth and the length of your pregnancy. Some studies are indicating that they can also increase the risk of problems in your baby's future physical and mental development, as well as behavioral issues in childhood. So they're doing a lot more studies on those as well. So obviously, de-stressing is important. So here are some ideas or some things to keep in mind. First is you want to pay attention to the triggers that make you stress and notice what happens when you do feel stress. This allows you to make a plan to find a way to de-stress. And just in general, try to slow down, rest. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Eat a healthy and well-balanced diet to keep you and your baby healthy, just like Lee told us all about. And you can also talk to somebody you trust about any concerns that you may have or how you're feeling. Mothers, aunts, friends who've been pregnant, your doctor, all of those are good options. And then some ideas to actually help you to relax. One of the best things is easy, and it's deep breathing. And it's one of the best things you can do before, during, and after pregnancy. Just like Lee was telling us about getting that red blood cells and the iron to the baby and through the mommy or the mother, this is something that's really awesome. It's something easy to do. So do that deep breathing. Another thing you can do is prayer or meditation. Those are excellent ways to calm down. Another thing you could do is warm, soothing bath or shower. Definitely no hot baths or no hot tubs. This can increase your heart rate and actually cause stress. So obviously we don't want that. But a warm bath is really relaxing. And yoga is not just a good exercise like Judy was telling us, but it does relax you. And then any other exercise like Judy was talking about, excellent ways to calm down and relax. You can also calm yourself with playing soothing music, or even better, sing a song, particularly a joyful or uplifting song. What surprised me is that it's very hard to be stressed while you are singing. Gratitude. If you make a list of things for which you're grateful, it's usually can stop your worrying, especially if you concentrate on those things or think about the things that you're grateful for. Laughter. This can totally change your attitude. So make sure laughter is plentiful during your pregnancy and beforehand. And of course, like Judy was talking about, that restful night's sleep, that is vital for pregnancy. What you want is a cool, dark room. If you can, get away all those electronics out of the room, all the lights off in the room, and get that really good night's sleep. So the other aspect of pregnancy that I wanted to touch on is that pregnancy brain, or those feelings of forgetfulness, inattention, mental fogginess that sometimes accompanies pregnancy. The cool thing is that the brain actually does change during pregnancy. They have studies that show that it actually does it. I think it's so awesome. So, and some researchers believe that these brain changes help make moms better prepared for the rigors of caring for a newborn. For example, might help by improving her ability to cope with stress while being more attuned to her baby's needs. And the changes in the brain also help with forming that mother-baby bond. So that's awesome. So the bottom line is that if possible before pregnancy, find ways to relax, exercise, and eat healthier meals. And then once you're pregnant, know that you will have some stress, emotions, and fogginess, and that's okay. Some of that is actually preparing you for becoming a parent. So just put that plan in place. Have that list of things that you can do to relax and for you to de-stress when that stress does come. And most importantly, enjoy the whole journey. It is going to be awesome. And now Renee Demon is a mother of 4, grandmother of 9, and she started her health journey 9 years ago through USANA's weight loss program. So she's going to talk about nutritional supplementation, which I wish that I had known about before I had my kids, so that all of my pregnancies would have been healthier.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. I'm talking about supplements, so hang in there. I know it's been a long night, but I've got a little more information for you, and this is important. First thing I want to say is vitamins are not created equal. A lot of well-meaning doctors will tell you to just go to Costco and buy the cheapest vitamin you can find, and I'm here to tell you that's not the way to go. It's not their fault. Doctors go to school and they learn disease and about medicine, not nutrition. Now, none of us here are nutritionists. Lee is the closest thing we have, but we've aligned ourselves with a science-based company that was founded by a scientist and employs over 80 scientists that continue to do research and development so that USANA stays on the cutting edge. Our founder, Dr. Wentz, set his standards high. His company goes above and beyond to produce products that are free of chemical toxins. They're in the correct form that your body can use, and they dissolve. That's kind of sounds silly, but I tell you, when we were stationed in Albuquerque, New Mexico, my best friend's mom had her septic tank cleaned out, and the guy that did it afterwards, he came to her and he said, "Ma'am, I don't know what those orange pills are that you're taking, but they ain't doing you no good." So if the vitamin you're taking doesn't dissolve, your body is not absorbing the nutrients that you need. USANA's vitamins dissolve within 14 minutes. Likewise, nutrients have to be in the correct form for your body to use them. It doesn't matter how much of a particular nutrient is on the label. If your body can't absorb it, you're wasting your money. For example, ascorbic acid is the cheapest form of vitamin C, but it's not as readily absorbed by the body. USANA uses Poly-C, which is a unique blend of mineral ascorbates that provide higher levels of vitamin C in the blood than equal amounts of ascorbic acid alone. Anyway, so if you're sitting there looking at 2 bottles and they have equal amounts of vitamin C in them, it's normal to think, well, I'm going to buy the cheapest one. Well, we don't have the scientific knowledge to distinguish between the different types of vitamin C and how well our body uses them. So that's why it's important to find a company that you can trust, and you can trust their science. Also, USANA uses superior raw ingredients from various global suppliers. The ingredients they choose are selected for effectiveness, bioavailability, which the form your body can use, and they all come with certificates of analysis stating its purity and potency. And this is pretty typical for the industry, And a lot of companies wave their certificate around saying their products are pure and potent, but USANA doesn't take their word for it. They're the only company that I know of that tests every single raw ingredient from different levels in the container to ensure quality, consistency, potency, and purity. At one time, our digestive enzyme contained spirulina. They bought it from a supplier in Japan, but after the earthquake and the compromise of the nuclear power plant in 2011, they could no longer find a clean source of spirulina. So the scientists went back to the drawing board and developed a new formula for the digestive enzyme, which left us without that product for quite some time at a great cost to the company. But Dr. Wentz will not compromise. So the FDA does not regulate the supplement industry as it does pharmaceuticals. It's up to the public to complain. Otherwise, no one's going to go in and check. Unless there's an adverse effect, nothing's going to get done. USANA has its own FDA registered manufacturing facility, which means that they voluntarily subject their facility to the manufacturing standards set forth for pharmaceuticals. And according to the National Library of Medicine, a 2019 study found that 51% of herbal and dietary supplements that they studied were mislabeled, meaning they didn't contain what the label claimed they contained. And also they contained some chemicals that were not listed on the label. USANA guarantees that what's on the label is in the product and nothing else. So everyone needs to be on a multivitamin and fish oil, but even more so when you're preparing for pregnancy. And the guys too. Vitamins and minerals play a huge role in the male sperm count and motility. They prevent DNA damage, boost sperm potency. Also, guys contribute half of the chromosomes to this baby that you're going to grow. So don't you want their DNA to be in those chromosomes to be undamaged? Antioxidants that vitamins provide destroy free radicals and prevent DNA damage. So it's important for both parties to be well nutriented. USANA's multivitamin comes in 2 bottles. The Vita antioxidant and their core minerals. And they provide the essential foundation of optimal nourishment plus powerful antioxidants. Some of the vitamins that are specific to growing your baby would be like vitamin A is important for the baby's overall growth and development. Vitamin D develops the bones, teeth, skin, and eyesight. And vitamin D is not really found in many foods naturally. Some foods are fortified with it. Mainly you get it from the sun. And nowadays, people aren't outside as much as they used to be. And when they are, they're putting on sunscreen. So it's very common for people to be deficient in vitamin D. And because of that, even though there's vitamin D in the multivitamin, we recommend supplementing with a vitamin D optimizer to give you even more vitamin D because it is so important. Calcium is necessary for the proper development of bones and teeth. And like Lee said, the baby's going to get the nutrients that it needs. And the baby will actually pull calcium from your bones if you're not providing enough for the baby. All the vitamin B vitamins are important for energy metabolism, but like Lee said, folic acid and vitamin B12 are especially important because of the development of the central nervous system, again, taking place in the first, actually it's completely formed during the first few weeks of life, emphasizing the importance of already having the nutrients on board and starting these vitamins before you get pregnant. Choline supports the structure and function of the brain and spinal cord and fetal development. Niacin supports digestive system, skin, and nerve function. Iron, Lee already mentioned that, you need higher amounts of it, the women do when they're pregnant because of the increased blood supply. Now the multivitamin that you're taking, once you're pregnant, you're going to want to give these to your husband and let him finish those. And you need to get the prenatal vitamins because they have the iron in them. There's the prenatals right there. Judy's showing them. Zinc's another important mineral during pregnancy, especially during the first trimester, sometimes before you even know you're pregnant, once again. And that's when the baby's organs are forming and also developing immune system. Magnesium intake is associated with healthy fetal growth and full-term delivery. And iodine is essential to the development of the baby's brain health, skeletal system, and metabolism. So all this is quite overwhelming, and it would be impossible for you to try to eat everything you need and keep track of the amount of vitamins you get in all your foods. So you just need to eat healthy and then take your multivitamin to fill in the gaps. And you'll be covered and you won't have to stress over it because that's not healthy. Okay, fish oil. We call our fish oil Biomega. And again, Lee already mentioned this, but the omega-3 fatty acids, particularly the DHA, are important in the development of the brain, eyes, and nerves, especially during the last trimester. But back to the quality, that is especially important here with the fish oil. USANA's Biomega is made from anchovies and sardines because they're small fish with short lifespans, and therefore they are naturally lower in contaminants. They also come from regulated sources to ensure quality. Plus, USANA does a double distillation process that removes impurities and any trans fatty acids. And the finished product is also tested, again, above and beyond. Remember, a baby cannot develop into a healthy, thriving human without the proper building materials to support healthy development. Your diet and lifestyle habits impact all stages, starting with your fertility. They help determine your child's nutritional health and birth weight. And during your pregnancy, you'll often hear people say, well, you're eating for two. And generally that's to give you permission to eat something that's not healthy. A more accurate statement would be you're nourishing two. So choose wisely what you eat. The best gift you can give your child is a healthy start, and that begins with you. So if you're interested in any of these products that we talked about, reach out to the person that invited you. Let's see, there's the multivitamin, fish oil, and the vitamin D. They're all sold separately. And then we also have a prenatal bundle. It's called Mommy and Me Bundle, and it has the prenatals, the Biomega, and the vitamin D. And you get a little discount on that bundle. It's $84.50. I think that saves you about $16. So that's it. Back to you, Karen.
All right. Thank you, Renee. And thank you, ladies. Wow. What a lot of great information for our folks who are with us tonight, and for hopefully those that will be able to join us later by reviewing the video. This one will definitely go in the archives with all the wonderful information that everyone shared tonight. So let me turn it over now to see if there are any questions from our participants. Feel free to turn your microphones on and ask them in person, or if you'd like to put it in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat to see if any questions come in through there, and we'll give you a moment to address some of those things that you may be wondering about that we may have raised in your mind as we've gone through all of the nutrition and exactly what's going on with your body as you go through those changes involved in pregnancy, how to best exercise. We talked about hydration. We talked about getting good rest and getting good sleep, reducing stress, and how nutrition can affect the outcome of various pregnancies with some real true to life stories that Carolyn shared. So any questions out there from anyone? We appreciate all of you being with us here tonight. Don't see anything coming in through chat. So anybody on the panel remember something that they meant to say and forgot to say? Any final words on that?
Karen, I'll
Okay.
just mention that I noticed in the chat that you had put in the link, which is great, to the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. So thank you. That was great.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. Yeah, those are there. And Judy is going to do a follow-up. And I think whoever may have invited you to this meeting, you'll probably get a follow-up from them to give you some of the links that we talked about, some of the additional information that we talked about. And so you'll be hearing from that person. And if you have decided that you want to give this a try and go with some of the USANA products, I think all of us here that are the coaches on your call can attest to years and years of use of these vitamins and the impact that it's had on our health and the health of our families. So we are hoping that we can make an important impact on families that you may be anticipating and getting ready to start. So again, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate you being here for Preparing for Pregnancy. Good night, everybody.
Night.